Hello everybody, thank you for joining me on my channel. Today I'm going to introduce you to some new and interesting things. For instance, this is the era of the 1800s, the late 1800s. And the person that makes these is my brother Jack. And he makes these, hand makes these. Where we get these are from our grandfather. And I'm going to let Jack explain that a little bit. Why don't you go ahead and tell them.
Our grandfather's name is Arthur Bush, and he grew up driving these things and operating these things like stagecoaches and covered wagons, and he worked with it and repaired all of them, and he knew everything about it. And so everything, the wagons that he made later on, he started in about the 1950s, he started making these wagons, and they're actually very, very accurate because that's what he worked on. And if you compare them, the model with the actual wagon itself, they're right down to the detail. And so he made them in his shop, something similar to this, and it took him very, very long time to make a wagon. And we've really tracked down maybe 15 of them, and they're really authentic, and the way he did that is unbelievable. And so it was exciting to see how he did it, and I started playing around with it, and I started making them, and I got hooked. And so I'm having so much fun with them, and so far we've got about 15 of them.
So right now, we're going to show you some of these, and Jack will explain some of the details on what he's making right here.
These wagons, everything works on these wagons. You have a handbrake, and if you pull the handbrake, you see that they work and they stop the wheels. And these happen to be a freight wagon in which you had a 20 mule team. Sometimes they had oxen, and you had the driver sat here on the wheeler, they called him, and he sat on this particular horse, and he'd have the rope. These aren't completed, of course, but every time he would pull the rope or the bar, all three of these wagons would operate the brake, and it would stop it. All these wagons would come right into the wheels and stop it. Like I said, we're in the process of building that right now.
And then on the top, you'll see, he's going to explain this too. He makes these individual pieces for the cargo, and then our sister Linda actually makes these for Jack. Here, Jack, explain what you've got up there.
Linda she makes all the sacks, and they'll be labeled like salt, beans, rice, whatever. We'll label those, and in the boxes are everything that they would pack. Like if most of these freight wagons after the Civil War were going to all the forts out west, and in those boxes you could find guns, you would find farming tools, ranching tools, and in the barrels they would be powder, and everything that they needed in a fort to live on. These freight wagons would visit them and with the supplies. And each wagon was could carry about 5 tons, and it's unbelievable how much they could carry in that. The last wagon on there, you have 2 freight wagons, and the last one they called that a caboose, and in that caboose will be all the tools and all the extra wheels and maybe a tongue to supply. If they break down on the road, to supply and get it fixed, they would have to do all of it at the same time.
Now Jack makes these wheels very intricately done. He separates all this, and we're not going to go into how he makes them, but everything is intricate. He even makes these hinges.
Toolboxes. Well, these are toolboxes.
Wait a minute.
These are toolboxes that were on each of the wagons, and they had one here and one down here in the front, and on the rear wagon they had one approximately sitting down about in here. So they carried about 3 of these tool boxes on the wagons that they were going across the country to the forts.
All right, so now we're going to take you and show you some of the stagecoaches and all of the wagons that are completely done. and they were done by our grandfather, and Jack actually has copied one of them and has made one of them, and we're going to go to that next. All right, here we are now in his display of all of the wagons that he has, the stagecoaches and the covered wagons, and he's going to explain each one briefly. What do we got up top there?
That's one of his covered wagons, and it has all of the tools and things that they carried along the side. They had water, they had the water barrels, and they also had the tools that they would carry on the outside rather than inside, because that was their living space. Down below this one here is a sheep herder's wagon, and then it is outfitted differently. You'll find that there's like a big place where they used to get in and do their baths. Down below here is the chuck wagon, and there it's fully loaded with all the kitchen utensils that he made. Also, and he did that also in the covered wagons.
Let me interrupt you right here. This is the beautiful thing about what our grandfather did. All these tools, can you take these and show these tools? He made these individual tools. There's a shovel, these are pans, and all kinds of things in here. Barrels for, is this an axe?
It's an axe, and on the other one up here you show it like I said, the shovel. You have a pick, and you also have a butter turner. We'll show you in the wagons down the line there.
Here's like a hammer or something.
That's
an axe.
That's an axe, chopping wood.
Yeah, that is too cool. Okay, let's see. What do we have over here?
That is a covered wagon, and you can see where they have the water barrels and the bucket below. If they had a stream, they did go down to the stream with that bucket. And you have a saw, a two-man saw.
He individually made these. I don't know how he did that. Here's a pick, right?
Yep. You got the picks. You got your gold pan. There you have chain, rope, all the things you would need. He's got a toolbox up front here. Had different tools to work on the wagon itself. And this also was your brake, and it pulls. And all the brakes would go about, when you pull the handle, the brakes would go against the wheels. And notice that in between this piece of wood is a block, they would have leather nailed to that surface. And so when they pulled it, that was like their old brake pads that we have on our trucks and cars nowadays. They had leather pieces that stopped it.
And you know, the amazing thing is everything on these wagons actually work. Pull the brakes, it works.
Hold water.
All the water thing.
And in the back here you have in the supplies back here. You need to see some of these.
Just a little pot, a little coffee.
That's a coffee mug. And then you have the
plates.
Yeah. Some of the things that they when they prepared their meals, they had all the pots and pans. Coffee.
Look how intricate this is. Can you see that? Look at that.
Grandpa made all that to work, and different wagons were different styles, and so he made several different styles that you see here. Similar in, they're all similar, but there's all something a little bit different because of different manufacturers on the wagons when they produced them. And then he made also the stagecoaches.
I'm showing all of the pots and pans in the back of this wagon too that we didn't have out here. That's how intricate this whole thing is. So this is another stagecoach, and then here is a totally different wagon. Jack, what is this one about?
This is a log wagon. When it was in the forest, they'd cut the trees down and they'd throw it on this wagon, and it's really, as working on these wagons, you find that this design looks just like what the truck and trailers are today. It never switched, it never changed. The way the logs sit on here is the same today as it was then in the forest. Also, now that the same undercarriage is now on all the trucks, that same undercarriage under here looks just like today's modern truck and trailers that are on the road today. So they were pretty smart in those days.
And this is actually beautiful. Down here, I think this the wagon that you made?
This wagon was, I was repairing some of the other wagons and that are scattered out throughout the family, and this one was smaller, and I couldn't figure out. I never had seen this small, and so as I was repairing it, I decided to make this one myself, so I would have the same design, because they're smaller than the other covered wagons. And I believe that Grandpa started with these. I have no proof of that. I'm still researching, but I think that this was one of his first ones. He made several of these small, and then he graduated up into the longer Conestoga and those kind of wagons. What Bob is showing there now is a wood turner, a butter turner, excuse me, and you pull out the top, Bob. No, the lid itself. There you go. And then you can see that the butter turner is still in there. It fell off. There. These had little arms on it. Put it on there, Bob. And this is a butter turner that you took that handle and you push it up and down when you put the milk in it. And as you put it in here, you would go up and down like that with this handle, and it would turn the milk into butter. And so all these things that he made shows you how they worked, and it's quite remarkable and interesting.
And then the covered wagons are made, and I'm going to let Jack explain that.
The actual material of the covered part, it's a family affair.
Right here, this
family affair. Linda, his granddaughter, made those and makes the actual sacks that handle all the rice and the beans that we put on the freight wagon. And it's just exciting to see us all have a hand in it, while Bob gives us and makes some of the leather products that's on the wagon. The stagecoaches, it sits on those what we call springs, but it's really leather. And so all the leather on the stagecoaches and on the covered wagons are given and made by Bob, and it's a family affair.
All right, that concludes checking out these handmade stagecoaches, covered wagons, log wagons that Jack has made. And he made one, and then the rest was done by our grandfather. We appreciate you joining us today, and thank you for joining my channel. And if you know somebody else that's interested in this type of thing, show them, tell them, and then subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.